Okay, we are live. This is attorney Vince Davis, and this is The Secret, How to Fight CPS and Win. This morning, I'm joined by a very special guest, Miss Sabrina Anderson. Sabrina, how are you this morning?
I'm pretty good. How are you, Mr. Davis?
Doing good, doing good. So, where are you located?
I am located in Pennsylvania, York, Pennsylvania, actually.
Okay, how far is that from Scranton?
I don't know. Pretty darn far, I think.
Have you heard of Scranton before?
Yes, I've heard of it. Is it near California?
No, Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Oh, Scranton. Oh, have you heard? No, I haven't heard of that. I was thinking of something else. Never mind.
Okay.
Oh, wait, kid, I guess.
So, do you have a story regarding CPS?
Yes, I do. It's been about 7 months now. July 15th is when it all took place. Um, my my children were originally put in a safety plan. Well, we agreed on a safety plan because my ex and I were struggling with an addiction, and so the safety plan ended up getting violated, and they took custody of my children, two of them. I have three total. I have a 5-year-old. Well, he'll be 5 this month in April. A 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 12-year-old. So they took custody of 2 of the 3 children. My oldest one, he went to live with his dad, who lives just a couple doors down from me. So I've still remained in constant contact with him throughout all of this. So sorry about that background noise. How do I begin this? I have a lot of questions. So there was some requirements for me to get my children back. They wanted me to do some evaluations, a drug and alcohol evaluation, and they wanted me to follow up with the recommended treatment, which I did. I was recommended to do intensive outpatient therapy, which is 4 times a week for 3.5 hours for 8 weeks, and I did that successfully. And then I did GOP, general outpatient, and I graduated from that for 10 weeks. I've remained sober since the first time they came to the house, and we both failed a drug test. Since then, I've not had any bad urines or anything like that. I haven't relapsed. I actually did go to detox too before I did the first treatment. But so I did that evaluation. I did the mental health evaluation. I did the random drug testing twice a week for the last 6 months. I work with a recovery specialist through what's called the RACE project. I forget what that stands for. Recovery Advocates, something or other. RACE project. I've done, let me see. I've done some counseling here and there on my own kind of thing. And a domestic violence evaluation. I've also done that, which was also part of their allegation. It was domestic violence and drug abuse, which there has been a history with my ex and I. We didn't get along very well at all, especially when drugs were involved. That really exacerbated things. And my neighbor would call the police sometimes when he would hear us yelling. And so there was proof there that they had. So I did the domestic violence evaluation. I actually haven't gotten the results of that. We did all the requirements. And now somehow or another, I'm further behind than I was in the beginning. And I haven't seen my kids since Christmas.
Since Christmas?
Christmas. Yep.
Have your rights been terminated?
No, they have not. They were with my sister, who was estranged, and I hadn't spoken with her in probably 6 years or so. That's who they went to live with. they needed, when the safety plan was violated, they needed to know where to take the kids. They needed to know where I wanted them to go. And I couldn't really get a hold of anybody. It was kind of in a pinch. They needed an answer like now, that day, that hour. So I texted my sister, who I hadn't heard from in years, and she said, "Yes, I'll take your kids." So that didn't go well. She made things very difficult for me. She belittled me, made me feel really bad about myself when I already did feel worthless and like a terrible person. I didn't know I was allowed to go to doctor's visits. I didn't know I had that right until actually just about a month ago. So but she knew apparently, because she would tell me, the kids have a dentist appointment on Wednesday, this date at this time. And I'd say, "Oh, okay, great. That's good. Thanks for letting me know." And she knew, I'm pretty sure. She had to have known that I wasn't aware that I could go, or I would have been at every doctor's appointment. But she that wasn't even there was so many things. She just made it very difficult for me, and it felt like she was almost alienating me from my kids for a while. And she wouldn't talk to me over the phone. Everything had to be through text. So for a while, I bit my tongue, and after about 5 months or so, I cussed her out one day, and it it came back on me in the courtroom. Then she made it a point to let the judge know that she couldn't handle the kids anymore. She wanted them moved to my other sister's house, and that I was sending her nasty messages, and that was the reason why. That's what she said. So that really made the judge mad, and he said, "Well, now you can't. Now nobody from your family can supervise visits. It can only be supervised by an agency." And uh, it took them today. Today's my first visit. As soon as we get off the phone, I'm going to see my kids. So it took them this long, from January 12th, to set up an agency to supervise the visits. So we've already done this, though. We've already been doing supervised visits at an agency, and then we had I don't know what that is. Then we had family supervising visits on the weekends and overnight and things like that. So they were kind of like supplementing. And then we would go to the agency twice a week, which those visits went really well. So now we're starting over at a brand new agency, and family can't supervise because they're afraid I'm going to lash out at another family member, which I haven't, though. My sister was the only one. And so where do I start? I don't know what module I'm in. I heard you talking about this in another video the other day, and I wanted to figure out what module I'm in my case, like what stage of the game, I guess.
Right, that's very important to know because you have to know what strategy, evidence, and procedures to use depending on the module. So I can try to help you figure out, the best thing for you to do is to consult with your attorney, right?
Right.
And do you have an attorney that you can email or text or call to get that information?
I do have an attorney. I have a court appointed attorney. She isn't familiar with some of the things that I've asked her about so far. Like, I asked her, for example, about getting my delivered service logs.
Hmm.
And she said, in the 10 years that I've been doing this, I've never been asked that question. She had no idea what I was talking about. And
I'm sorry for laughing, but that's kind of interesting that she would say that because that means that in your county, um, no one's been enforcing their rights all of this time. And if she's just a court-appointed attorney and she's never heard of delivered service logs, There's probably a few other things she may have not heard of. But did you guys figure out what delivered service logs are?
Yeah, I actually sent her one of your videos the one night, and I said, if you have some time, this is a really good video. And they talk about the delivered service logs. And I don't know if she ever watched it. She's been on vacation this past week, so um but I did end up getting my delivered service logs. I requested them on my own through Children and Youth, and I had to put it in writing. I had to do it, in writing.
Right.
And they did finally send me them through certified mail, but it was all the service plan, safety plans, family service plans, and things from uh, a time when I had an open case before with Children and Youth. Back when I had a DUI, I had gotten a DUI back in 2019.
So they didn't send you the current delivered service logs?
No. And it was all stuff that I already have. And I even said specifically in my email to the woman, because I had emailed her asking when I could be expecting them. I said, if they weren't sent yet, I'd like to uh, specify, I wanted to include the notes, specifically caseworker notes. And because I know you said there could be some exculpatory evidence in those, but they're really they sent me about 20, 25 pages worth of stuff I already had.
So what you should do is talk to your attorney and talk to your attorney about sending a follow-up email saying, number one, that the discovery request that they have given you, or the response to the discovery request, is not sufficient in that it doesn't include anything, current, and you don't see any social worker notes or anything like that. The delivered service logs are delivered to the Department of Health and Human Services because the Department of Health and Human Services, the federal government, reviews those delivered service logs in audits to make sure the social worker is doing quote unquote the right things in the case. And the reason why they have audits is because the federal government is giving your county and state hundreds of millions of dollars for these CPS cases, and the audit goes to look at to see if your county or social worker are doing the right things. So they exist, and they do sometimes, I would say, more than sometimes, include exculpatory evidence that's not put in to their reports to the judge. You know, I told this story before. I used to be an accountant with a firm, an international accounting firm that's now known as Deloitte. But when I was there, it was called Haskins and Sells, and then Deloitte Haskins and Sells. And when we did audits, one of the things that I realized is that people can, what accountants call is pencil whip you. There's an old joke. What's 2 plus 2?
For
Well, no, it's not 4. It's whatever you pay for it to be, whatever you want it to be. And that's a very hard concept for people to understand. I don't know if you remember, you might be too young for this, but the whole Enron scandal, it was a big financial scandal where a lot of people went to jail. One of the biggest accounting firms in the world, I think it was Arthur Anderson, went out of business because of it. And basically, 2 plus 2 was whatever you wanted it to be. Well, the same concept applies, in my opinion, to social workers. Social workers can write a report any way they want. They can slant it to the right, to the left, up, down, whatever they want. It's amazing what human beings can do with the written word. Okay.
I was very surprised by that, actually.
And so, in order to keep them honest, you got to kind of um, do that audit. And the only way you can do that audit is to look at the delivered service logs sometimes. Now, every time you look at the delivered service logs, you're not going to find that smoking gun,
Right.
but sometimes it gives you a better picture about what's going on. So definitely talk to your lawyer about it. Now, notice I'm not telling you to do stuff without your lawyer. Okay, that would be reckless of me.
Right.
Talk to your lawyer, try to come up with a plan. She now knows what delivered service logs are.
Mhm.
Okay, and she can either tell you, figure out the benefit or burden of trying to get that information and looking at that information. I've seen delivered service logs win cases. I've seen delivered service logs mean nothing to cases. So, but you just don't know because you don't know what you don't know.
Well, this is interesting because she actually did the one day that we were talking about these service logs. I had asked her to actually, how did it go? I had called the foster agency. The it's a foster agency that's working with our case. And well, I guess because they have to, the goal is reunification, but they have to concurrently run the goal of adoption. So the foster agency is involved, very much so. But so I called them the one morning. I wanted to know who the caseworker was for my case, or who was handling my case, because it wasn't who I thought it was. I was told. But and then I called back a second time, right after I had hung up with the woman. I called back a second time because I wanted to ask, uh, oh, for my records, for whatever therapies they were doing with my daughter and my son, whatever things they had done so far with them. And because this was the day that my attorney said she wasn't sure what they were, and we were talking back and forth about it. And I said, well, I'm going to go ahead and just see if I can request it on my own. And so later in the day, I get a call from my attorney, and she wants to know why I called this foster agency 2 times that morning. Because the woman, who actually is the caseworker involved in my case, who I thought wasn't, she must have called my attorney at some point that day and said, I feel like I'm being harassed by this person. She called me twice this morning at two different numbers, two different offices. I don't know how I did that because I called the same number back. But she said, I feel like I'm being harassed and I don't know why she's calling me. What would she want with me? I'm here to support the foster parents, the kinship foster parents. I'm not really here for the biological parents per se. So told uh I told my attorney why I called. She goes, well, they thought you were calling for something else, but I'll let her know that's why you called, and we'll see what we can get. So finally, I get an email from the foster agency, well, from my attorney actually, with the documents, and it was one form that they fill out. So they'll fill this form out each week, I guess, same form. So they'll just keep adding to it. It'll be like each week they'll add, okay, this week this happened, or had follow-up doctor's appointment, last week. And it was the same form 5 different times. 5 for my daughter and 5 for my son. And I was like, is that it? Because they were doing a prep class with my daughter that I knew nothing about until like the very last class. My daughter said one evening, today's my last prep class. I was like, what? So they were doing all kinds of things with them. They're very much involved at the foster parents' house, but I never knew. And there's a lot of rules that have been coming from them too. I had written my kids a note one night, like just a little letter, because we weren't really getting phone calls, and when we did, it was really hard to hear each other. So I wrote him a little letter, and I guess the foster agency woman was there and took a picture of it. And that is why she thought I was calling that day to tell them why I thought this letter was a good idea. And I didn't even know about it at that point. But from my understanding, we're allowed to write our children letters, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Unless the judge has ordered otherwise.
Okay. Um. Okay. So yeah. So there was that, and there's a lot of things that you've said about they helped to make a phone schedule. Uh, every evening at 7 o'clock, the kids call me, and if I miss it and I don't call back by 10 after, then I miss the opportunity. And that was a rule that came from the foster agency. So there's a lot of things that have been coming into play from them, and I didn't even know how involved they were. Um, so the only thing they sent me was one single form, though. I guess that's all I am allowed to have from them. But
That's not true. You and your attorney should talk about subpoenaing all documents and records from that foster family agency regarding your children. I can assure you there are probably, more than 50, more than maybe even more than 100 pages. There's
so
a lot of
it's not enough just to ask them.
subpoena. You know
Okay.
what a subpoena is?
Yeah, I do, but just by requesting your delivered service log, it's not really enough. You have to subpoena it sometimes to get all of it.
How important is this to you?
I mean, it's kind of important because the judge seems to have a
And
really
why?
good idea.
Why, if it's important, why would you rely on a simple call that somebody could say, I never got?
Okay, fair enough.
I want you to think about this, and everybody watching this. Unfortunately, you're involved in a lawsuit, probably for the most important thing in your life. You're not fighting over $1 million. You're fighting over getting your children back or losing them permanently. Taken in that context that you're in a lawsuit, do you just make phone calls? You want to get it in writing. You want to have it recorded in writing that you made this request or that your attorney made this request. Nothing like a subpoena. A subpoena doesn't mean anything bad. Subpoenas are, they're the law. We're just asking you to follow the law.
And we need a court, like my attorney would have to get a court order for that.
No. Well, I
Judge.
don't know. I don't know what the law is in Pennsylvania, but in most states like California, a subpoena is just a form you print off the internet, fill it out, and have it served. Generally, the attorney has to sign it or have some type of acknowledgement that they're issuing the subpoena. If you have an attorney, I wouldn't issue a subpoena on my own. I would
Right.
have an attorney do it.
Yeah, I wouldn't have the slightest clue. Where to
Right.
start.
And in your case in California, it would not only be a subpoena, but it would be a subpoena ducis tecum, which means you're subpoenaing something, a document or documents, to be produced and disclosed to you. And in California, if you subpoena to a non-court hearing day, you would want to call it a deposition subpoena. Just have the custodian of records show up with all of the documents and swear that these are all the documents. See, one of the things, and this goes back to what you said about the records, the delivered service logs you got. You just asked them for it, right? And they just gave you some BS.
Right.
It's not in writing, and it's not a subpoena. We'll put it like that. It's not a subpoena,
Yeah, it was in writing, just not a subpoena.
not a subpoena. So they could give you whatever you want. They look at the file and say, okay, there's 1,000 pages here. I only feel like making a copy of 10 of them. I'll give her that. Maybe she'll go away. And then what happens? You're screwed.
Right.
So do everything, by the book. They do.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I beg to differ with that sometimes.
No, the procedures. I'm talking about the
But
procedural aspect.
yes, procedures. Yeah.
So they make sure they CYA, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They do things. How
Mhm.
come you're not doing it?
Well, I'm going to. I plan to now.
Definitely, you gotta talk to your attorney. Make sure she's in on this. Make sure she knows what's going on. Make sure she approves it.
Sometimes it's hard for me to know whose side she's been on because she is a court appointed attorney and she's been great. But what after the first court hearing, I guess it was the permanency hearing, placement hearing, I asked her if we could appeal that. And she said no, because we agreed to it in the courtroom. And then after the next hearing, I think it was just like a status review hearing. I said, "Can we appeal this? Because, I really want my kids to be moved to my other sister's house." Originally, when they asked me to where I wanted them moved, because the safety plan was violated, I wasn't aware that they were taking custody. So when they moved them, they moved them an hour away, and my daughter had to change schools. So I was really pushing to have them move to my other sister once I found out that she was willing and able to take them, because she would make sure that my daughter got to school and wouldn't have to change school districts and everything, and wouldn't be an hour away for visits. They would be 5 minutes down the road. So they wouldn't. They had a bid meeting or something, and they said no, we're gonna have her change schools and leave her where they're at. And I oh, where was I going with this? Oh, and my attorney, I said, can we appeal this where the placement of them, because they're too far away. I don't have reliable transportation right now. My daughter has to change schools. Like, I hate this. They don't get to see their brother. So she said, no, we can't appeal it. We don't really have a leg to stand on right now. And I forget what had happened. At every court hearing, something happened. Where my sister would be telling the judge, oh, the kids came home and told me that their mom spent the night with them at their aunt's this weekend. And that was true. However, the rules on that were a little vague to my aunt as well. We were told for the first few times you go to visit our aunts, just stay for a few hours. Don't be staying the whole day or anything. And after that we can start progressing. So that's what I did the first couple of times. It just got longer and longer, and then the third time, I believe, my aunt said, "Well, why don't you just stay? We're going to be here supervising you the whole time." And if the caseworker asks, I'll tell him, we were here the whole time, and, supervising, and we thought it was appropriate. Okay, because this is the third time. So I didn't necessarily think I was breaking the rule. I should have asked, I should have confirmed it first, obviously, but my sister made it a point to bring that up in court. So, of course, the judge wasn't happy. The second time was I had filed a PFA against my ex um, back in December, and I finally got granted unsupervised visits for the first time. I had one weekend with him right before Christmas, and it was such a good weekend. It was amazing. The kids loved being home. We had so much fun. And during that weekend, I had just filed the PFA about a week before.
What's a PFA?
Oh, sorry, protection from abuse. Um, I well, excuse me. I had to file it because he had relapsed, and it it got a little crazy, and he broke a door on my home, and I was scared. And 9 years of being with him, and things have gotten out of hand, but I probably should have done it sooner, for being honest. But I did file it, and during my weekend with the kids, my first unsupervised weekend, which he knew. And this was a limited contact order for the protection from abuse, which was also very vague, kind of. It was like limited to phone calls, emails, and text, solely related to the well-being of the children. That's how it was worded, as far as limited contact goes, and obviously no abusive contact. So he wanted to drop off my son's dirt bike that was over at his mom's, and my son was asking about it for days before that, about like a week before that. So I thought about it, and I thought, my oldest son's dad, he lives right down the road, and he was actually a supervisor for visits for me for a long time. Actually, from the start, he would get my younger two so that I could visit with them, and he only lives a couple houses down from me. So I told my ex, I said, "You can bring the dirt bike, but meet me down at my other ex's house. That way, there's a third party there, and plus, he's a supervisor of visits, but in case anything would go down." So we did, and then the kids went home to my sister and told her that they saw their dad this weekend, and that was it. That was the end of my supervised visits. I violated this my own PFA, and the judge was really, really mad about that. So he took away my unsupervised visits right before Christmas. So Christmas, I did get to see them at my older son's dad's house. Spent the night there with them. And that was the last time I've seen them since then. So,
Can I stop you for a second?
mhm.
Do you mind if I give you some suggestions?
Yes, I don't mean no, I don't mind at all. Please do.
You are approaching this case, in my opinion, a little lackadaisical. Okay, you can agree or disagree with me. I'm just, sitting on the outside looking in.
Okay.
I want you to realize something that I told you earlier. This is the most important lawsuit you'll ever be in.
Hmm.
Okay, there'll be nothing more important.
Right.
And if that's the case, you shouldn't be doing anything without consulting your lawyer. And there was a question posted in the comments, well, what if your lawyer doesn't do or answer you or whatever? Then you need another lawyer. You need to go talk to another lawyer. You shouldn't be trying to figure out things on your own, and you shouldn't be making conclusions on your own about anything. Loosey goosey decisions. And by now you should know that the judge is, this is going to report it to the judge, and you're going to look bad. I mean, if you were fighting for a lawsuit for $100 million, would you do this?
No.
No, of course not. But you're doing it in a lawsuit regarding your children, which, in my opinion, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the kids aren't or are worth more than $100 million. So if you wouldn't do it for $100 million, why are you doing it for the kids? People think, I have a video. I hope you've seen this video. If not, after this show, you need to go watch it on YouTube. What is justice?
Yep.
Okay,
Uh,
I'm standing in front of a whiteboard, drawing some circles, explaining to you what justice is. It's not what you think it is, so quit making decisions on your own.
I've learned that now.
Okay, but,
Um,
but you look so bad in front of the judge.
yes, I know.
And if I'm the judge, and I'm pro family, if I'm the judge, I'm going to scratch my head and say, "What's up with this lady? She
I guess
seems she seems to be a little clueless."
I guess when I spent the night with them, it was more so out of desperation. I just really missed my kids, and I
I,
hadn't
I
seen them.
know. Oh, I get it. I get it. You trying to win a lawsuit, or you trying to feel good? You trying to get your kids back, or you trying to be right?
Both.
You can have both. If you watch my videos, I tell you over and over, you cannot have both. And if you try to have both, you're going to end up in a disaster of a result. You're going to lose your kids permanently. And then what? And then what?
And then I just don't know what will become of
Right,
me. Has
right.
this been easily the hardest, roughest, lowest point of my life? I've
There was a woman that used to work with me who was not a lawyer. And maybe I should start this platform, but have somebody else do it. Um, you know what? She started a support group for CPS parents because I look at everything like a lawyer, and that's not realistic for most people, right?
right.
She started a support group where she got together with parents and shared her story. She had a real effed up story too with CPS, and to this day, she's still battling it in family court. But she understood parents, where they are, how they feel, because she went through all of that for like maybe 2 years. And the problem is that your emotions about your children are going to make you do things that interfere with you winning a case.
Well, I guess you could say I learned my lesson the hard way with
And,
her.
but time is ticking away. You're losing valuable
Right.
time.
Yeah,
You,
and
you,
that's the
you,
problem.
you can't afford to make those mistakes and say, oh, okay, I learned from my mistakes. I'll correct it.
I've done everything they asked me to do, and I
No,
was
no, 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 no.
at that.
No,
It,
you haven't. You
it
have not.
well because it took me till now to realize. Not now. I realized it after uh my ex dropped the dirt bike off after that whole thing.
Well, wait, Sabrina, look, because we only have a limited time this Sunday morning, and I'm gonna be real with you, okay?
Mhm.
You have not done everything they've asked, and you know why I say that? Because you continue to violate orders and the spirit of orders. So every time you go to court, the judge is thinking, "What's wrong with this lady?"
Well, I guess I forgot I was under a microscope, or I didn't realize how much so I was under a microscope. And
You're in the most important legal battle again. You're in the most important legal battle of your life. You are under the microscope. They're
literally,
literally, they're on you like white on rice. And
it's
it's no
frustrating.
bullshit. It's no bullshit. These people are serious and they will take your kids away from you permanently. And then you'll come to me and say, I want to sue everybody because I got treated bad. And then you tell me the story of the things that you're doing. Come on, let's be real. I'm a lawyer. I'm not a magician. Let's
It,
be for real. Let me tell you how to fix this. I'm going to tell you how to fix it. Okay?
okay.
I need to know, when is the next court hearing in your case and what is it for?
April 13th, and it is a status review hearing.
Okay. I'm glad you didn't say, well, at this status review hearing, could one of the outcomes be to terminate your family reunification services?
It could.
Okay. So
There's always a
you
possibility.
okay, you need to find that out. Okay. And if you want, I'll have a telephone conference with you and your lawyer, and I can tell you and suggest some strategies. But generally speaking, you need to write down on a checklist everything that the judge ordered you to do. Okay. And you need to put down if you've completed it or not. If you haven't, you better start it right now. This is March 5th. And if you have completed it, you need to get completion certificates or letters from the people, your service providers, and get all that information. Give it to your lawyer and your social worker.
I actually have a binder that I started when this all started. I have a binder that I would put every completion certificate in, or I would
Okay,
just ask my drug tester lady, the lady who randomly tests me, can you write me a letter of participation and just let you know? And
right.
I,
Get all that together. Get
yeah,
all that
it's
together.
already done. I have it all together.
And
It's
then, and then, because I've seen people lose cases because of this. They've done everything that they've asked, except for one thing. And they forget that this is one of the requirements. The requirement is that you successfully have visitation with your children. You can't really say that right now. So for you to say that you've done everything is kind of not accurate, okay?
Right, right.
So from when you start your visitation, when you have your visitation, I want you to imagine that the judge is listening in on you with a videotape and audio tape, and he's seeing everything that you're doing. And then you have to act accordingly. You get it?
Yes.
Okay. Sabrina, no matter what, I believe that children should be with their parents. That's my own personal belief. Does your judge think that? I don't know. And if he does, where is he on the scale? All
Well,
right.
my
So
attorney told me
you,
he hates drug addicts. So that's
well,
where we're at with that.
okay. All right. I can see that. A lot of people are like that. A lot of people don't go what a lot of us go through. Understand? I
Yeah,
lost a son to drug addiction.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Okay. So, you know, people have their own beliefs. You
Mm,
can't change it.
mm.
Okay. Just act accordingly. And look, you're a smart person. I can tell that.
I'm actually a nurse. I actually went to school for nursing.
Okay. So
Mhm.
yeah, you're smart. Okay. Do act accordingly. Don't be flaky about this. Don't think that they're going to give you a second chance because
Um,
they're not. They're not.
it, it,
Do you understand that if you lose your children through adoption, that they make money from that? Do you understand that?
no, I didn't understand that actually.
All right.
When
So let me
if
tell you
I,
something. Let me tell you something.
if,
There are financial incentives built into the system that if you lose your children to adoption, that the people that adopt your children make money and the county makes money. Okay? Now,
because you're paying child support,
no,
I'm paying child
no,
support.
no, no. This has nothing to do with child support. Okay? So what I just told you, I want you to think about it, and we've done videos on it. I know Miss G has talks about it all the time on her show. Look, these people get paid money if you don't reunite. Now, what are you going to do about it? You have the power to pull this out of the fire. And by the way, are your children with a relative right now?
Yes, they're with my other sister. Yes,
How do you get along with that sister?
great, fine.
Okay,
Everything's been
perfect.
pretty kosher.
Okay, perfect. I believe that you can pull this case out. Okay.
What do you think about a petition? Filing a petition if the hearing doesn't go well in April?
I don't think you have to concern yourself with that right now. I think you and your lawyer should be meeting, coming up with a strategy and a plan, and producing documents and witnesses that can get on the stand and get admitted into evidence.
Like character witness?
Cool. So I don't know the rule in your state on character evidence. In California, character evidence is generally not admissible. Now there are, 1,001 exceptions,
Right.
right? There's one evidentiary commentator that has, I think his name is Bernard Jefferson. He's deceased, but he's a famous evidentiary commentator in California that says that character evidence is never admissible unless one of the unlesses was characters an issue in the lawsuit. And he opined that in juvenile dependency or CPS cases, that character was always at issue. Now, I represent people all over the state of California, and I can tell you that judges, 50% of them say character evidence can be admissible, 50% of them say character evidence is not admissible. So don't character evidence. I would not rest my success or chances of success on character evidence.
Just possible strategy, maybe. If
Like icing on the cake. The judge wants to know, have you done everything? And I mean everything. And are you acting right on these visits? Okay. And
they,
Don't think that the judge has to give you a break. You should assume the judge is not going to give you a break. So now what? You need to act accordingly.
It's frustrating sometimes because you do, you
So,
know,
Sabrina, I
it,
can, I get it. I
there's
get it.
always something that they're
Right,
finding.
I get it. But I'm a lawyer. Okay. Fortunately, I did not go through this process with my kids.
Yes, very fortunate.
I had a CPS agent show up at my door though and want to interview me for possible abuse of my kids.
Did you tell them no?
No, I brought them in because I wanted to F with them.
Oh, okay.
I don't think that she realized that I was an attorney who did CPS cases. She knew I was an attorney, but the way the thing came in was
I would have
my
liked to fly
my
on for
my
that.
yeah, my aunt, I found this out much later. My aunt was in a relationship where there was domestic violence. She didn't live with me, but she babysat
Oh,
my children, and she was in counseling, I think at UCLA or someplace, and about her marriage counseling, was talking about the domestic violence, was talking about the fact she babysat my children once in a while, and I didn't know anything about this domestic violence. You know, back then it was like, under wraps. You didn't talk about it like you talk about it today. It was 30 years ago.
right.
And because of that, the counselor made a referral to CPS to come investigate to see if my kids were in any type of risk or danger. So
Because,
the lady comes in, I let her in, which you shouldn't do, don't
right.
do this at home. And I just, she started asking me questions. I actually wanted to go through the interview to see what my clients were going through, right? I mean, people tell me about the interview and the social worker and blah, blah, blah. And it was a very interesting experience. And it wasn't even me accused or my wife accused of the child abuse. It was my aunt who doesn't live with me, and it wasn't even her, it was her husband, who I hadn't seen in a few years. So you see how all this can like snowball into stuff. She asked me to take a drug test, all kind of crazy stuff,
Wow.
you know. And it was referred because my aunt's therapist made the referral based upon my aunt and her husband's conduct at their home.
And no matter what, they have to come out and investigate when they get a
Yeah,
call.
yeah, yeah. They do. And this lady had left a card on my door, and my wife shows me the card. I get home, shows me the card, and I'm like, the first thing was like, "What the hell are you doing to the kids when I'm at work?" You know, I thought, well, wait a minute, you beating my kids and I don't know about it. And that was a whole
About it.
issue. That was a whole issue until I called the lady back and told her to come over to the house, and it was a couple weeks later. But for a couple weeks, I'm like, what is my wife doing to the kids when I'm not at home? And then turns out it has nothing to do with my wife. So you don't know where these people are getting their information from. So approach this case differently, please. You're intelligent. You've done what you're supposed to do. Quit playing loosey goosey with the visitation. They're watching you they're on top of you like white on rice. They're looking at you through a microscope. Don't screw up.
I won't. Not again. I know. I'm trying very good to.
In a lot of my videos, I tell people all the time, these cases are not won and lost in the courtroom. They're won and lost by things you do or say outside the courtroom.
Right, because me texting my sister and cussing her out, that didn't really have anything to do with why my children were taken in the first place. And
Right.
here I
Yeah,
am thinking
yeah,
that,
yeah.
I bit my tongue for so long. I can't take it anymore, the way she talks to me. And so I'm just going to tell her how I feel. And I really didn't think that that could be associated with my case at all
I,
because,
I know you didn't think that, but you
but
were
they
wrong.
connected it.
No, 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 no. See, here's the thing. I want you to listen to this carefully, and before you say anything, I want to complete this thought. It had nothing to do with why your kids were taken originally. However, and this is the part most people don't understand, it has everything to do with whether you're going to get your kids back.
Yes, it does.
Now, if you had known the however part, you wouldn't have cussed her out.
Right. Not at all.
Right. But see, there's so much about these cases that you don't know, and they're not common sense. What did I tell you in the video, What is Justice? You're 95% wrong about everything. You're 5% right. But you know how we human beings are. We think we're right about at least 5%. We know everything,
Yeah.
everything. But it turns out you're 95% wrong.
Well, and when it comes to your kids, you think you know everything that's best for them, at least. Like,
Right. And you're
but
wrong. And
yeah,
you
wrong.
think you think as an American this is not going to happen to you. And
Mhm.
you're wrong. You know, most of the cases, the people I talk to, you wouldn't believe the number of people that call me every day. Most people, I will say 80% of the people do not believe what I tell them. They don't believe me. This is America. They can't do this here. I know what's best for my children. The social worker lied about ABC, therefore I should win. By the way, social worker lies about ABC doesn't mean you get your children back. Okay?
Okay.
Let's get that straight right now. What it
Well, I
means
know.
is what it means is if you get your children back,
Then we can maybe go back and
no, you can go over to federal court and sue them for a lot of money.
okay. That's what I was gonna. That was what I was getting.
But the first one was if you get the children back.
Right.
I'm depending on what it is, so judges may not even be concerned about what the social worker said or did. It doesn't have anything to do with you getting the kids back. You follow me?
Yeah, I do.
Mm. You're getting up, you're about to leave?
Oh, I'm sorry. I actually have my visit with my kids. I'm going
Oh,
soon, so we were gonna head out. I was taking my phone with me.
no, no.
But
That's okay. Sabrina, look, I want to thank you for being on the show and sharing your story. If you and your attorney want to have that telephone call with me, you know my number, 888-888-6582, and I'd be happy to talk to you guys, free of charge, just to give my ideas, which they may want to follow and they may not want to follow.
thank you so much, Attorney Davis. That is so nice of you to offer that. I would really appreciate it, and I think my attorney would too, honestly, because she seems like she could learn some more about this too. I mean,
Okay. Well, have a good visit with the kids. Remember, the judge is watching you.
I know.
All right.
The eye in the sky.
Have a good day and have a good visit. Bye bye.
Thank you. It was very nice meeting with you.
All righty.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Oh, Sabrina, very nice woman. Hopefully, she'll get everything together, get her kids back. I want to thank everybody for watching today, and we'll be on starting Monday at our usual time, 7 p.m., Monday through Friday. So, everyone, have a good rest of the day, and we'll see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. Bye bye now.